Please be seated. Well, here we are in our Summer Narrative Lectionary series on Women of the Bible, brought to you by some of the faithful women of this congregation. And today we get to hear from Esther, Queen Esther's, plural kind of, sort of. I'll tell you about that later. And we have a moment, a kids moment, brought to you by Kate. Wait, Kate, that's right. She was at the National Youth Convention of the ELCA this past week, and she was flying home yesterday and made it as far as Philadelphia when that, software glitch happened and there were no more flights for a while. So she's, I guess, on an Amtrak train trying to return here, but I can't toss it to Kate. But she did text someone and said, "Can you possibly?" So instead of Kate, you're up, it's Kirby, you're up.
All right, you're going to have to imagine my voice is Kate's voice because this is written in the first person. Good morning, friends. As you can see, I'm not in church today. I was making my way home from the youth gathering and had trouble with my flight. I will see you next week as we get ready to start Vacation Bible School. This week, our woman from the Bible was Esther. Esther was Jewish, but nobody knew it until someone was going to kill the Jewish people, and she had to ask her husband, the king, to help. The king could have had Esther killed for this. Thankfully, he didn't, but Esther had to be very brave and trust that God would be with her. Each day at the youth gathering, we had the theme, Created to Be, and on the first day, it was Created to Be Brave, just like Esther. There are times when we are called to be brave, standing up to a bully, meeting new people, sharing our thoughts with others. We don't know how it's going to turn out. We have to be brave and trust God while we try to do what we can to love each other, even though it's hard and scary. I miss you all, and I'm eager to share more about the youth gathering with you next week. The next gathering will be in 2027 near Pastor Eric and Stacy's hometown in Minneapolis. Anyone who will be in grade 9 to 12 then is welcome to attend. Thank you.
Way to go, Kirby, Kate. All right, sections of Esther chapter 8 to frame this whole introduction of Esther this morning. Let's read it together. Here we go. On that day, King, I wanted to hear you say it. It's kind of fun. Gave to Queen Esther the house of Haman, the enemy of the Jews, and Mordecai came before the king, for Esther had told what he was to her. Then the king took off his signet ring, which he had taken from Haman, and gave it to Mordecai. So Esther set Mordecai over the house of Haman. Then Esther spoke again to the king. She fell at his feet, weeping and pleading with him to avert the evil design of Haman the Agag to the plot that he had devised against the Jews. The king held out the golden scepter to Esther, and Esther rose and stood before the king. She said, "If it pleases the king, and if I have won his favor, and if the thing seems right before the king, and I have his approval, let an order be written to revoke the letters devised by Haman, the son of..." You're doing great. "Which he wrote, giving orders to destroy the Jews who are in all the provinces of the king. For how can I bear to see the calamity that is coming on my people? Or how can I bear to see the destruction of my kindred?" Then the king, you're doing great, said to Queen Esther and to Mordecai the Jew, "See, I have given Esther the house of Haman, and they have hung him on the pole because he plotted to kill the Jews. You may write as you please with regard to the Jews, in the name of the king, and seal it with the king's ring. For an edict written in the name of the king and sealed with a king's ring cannot be revoked." He wrote letters in the name of King Ahasuerus, sealed them with the king's ring, and sent them by mounted couriers riding on fast steeds bred from the royal herd. By these letters, the king allowed the Jews who were in every city to assemble and defend their lives, to destroy, to kill, and to annihilate any armed force of any people or province that might attack them, their children and their women. Then Mordecai went out from the presence of the king, wearing royal robes of blue and white, with a great golden crown and a mantle of fine linen and purple, while the city of Susa shouted and rejoiced. For the Jews there was light and gladness, joy and honor, in every province and in every city. Wherever the king's command and his edict came, there was gladness and joy among the Jews, a festival and a holiday. Furthermore, many of the peoples of the country professed to be Jews because the fear of the Jews had fallen upon them. Whew. Esther, tell us more. Come on.
Well, I'm really short, and this is really tall. Okay. How do you, is it low, lower? Oh, that's okay. So Esther, I want to tell you the story of Esther. I love her because of her bravery and the risk that she took for people that she loved. So Esther lived in ancient Persia. She lived about 100, this is a little background about her, 100 years after the Babylonian captivity. And her Hebrew name was, and I may say this incorrectly, but Hadassah. When her parents died, she was adopted and raised by her older cousin, Mordecai. Mordecai had instructed her not to tell anyone she was Jewish. One day, the King Xerxes of the Persian Empire threw a lavish party. And he summoned his wife Vashti to come before his guests to show them how beautiful she was. She refused. Because of her refusal, he disposed of the queen and removed her from the kingdom. Now he did not have a wife. So he summoned, So he held a beauty contest to find a new wife, and he selected Esther, and that's how she became queen. Her cousin Mordecai became a minor official in the Persian government, and the government of Susa. So Mordecai uncovered a plot to assassinate the king. He told Esther, and she told the king, giving credit to Mordecai for what she had learned. The plot was found to be true, and these two officials were hanged on the gallows. And Mordecai's act of kindness was preserved in the Chronicles of the King. So in that time, anytime anyone did anything that favored the king and made him, kind of like a hero, he put it in his Chronicles. At the time, the king's highest official was Haman. I'd been pronouncing it Haman all day, so thank you, Pastor, for correcting me. He hated the Jews, especially Mordecai, because Mordecai would not bow down to him. So, where'd it go? I'm standing on my tiptoes to read this. So Haman devised yeah, thank you. Thank you. Haman devised a scheme to have every Jew in Persia killed. And the king agreed to the plan, and it was to be done on a very specific the Jewish people were to be killed and annihilated on a very specific day. Then Mordecai learned of the plot, and he shared it with Esther. And this is something I want to read because this is the kind of a famous saying. Do not think that because you are in the king's palace, you will escape when all other Jews are killed. For if you remain silent at this time, Relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your family, father's family, will die. And who knows if you were made queen for such a time as this. Esther prayed and went and had all of the Jews of Susa, had them gather and told them to fast and pray for deliverance, not to eat or drink for 3 days and 3 nights, and that she and her maids would do the same thing. Then, though it is against the law, she went to see the king. She said, if I must die, I must die. Why did she say that? Because everyone in the king's court knew that for any man or woman who entered without the king being summoned, the king had only one law, to be put to death. The only exception was if the king extended the golden scepter to spare their life. Esther stood in that inner court of the palace in front of the king's hall. When the king saw Esther, he was pleased, so he extended the golden scepter. Esther approached the inner court, then risking her own life, brave young Esther approached the king with a request. She invited Xerxes and Haman to a banquet. The king asked what was her request, and she said, well, before I reveal that request, I want to invite you and Haman to a second banquet the following day. So they went. On the night before the second banquet, the king couldn't sleep, so he asked for his chronicles. When he read them, he noticed that Mordecai had not been noted or rewarded for his great deed, saving his life. So in the morning he summoned Haman and asked him what should be done for the man the king delights to honor. And Haman replied this, who should be more honored than me? The king then ordered Haman to get a robe, a horse, and a royal crest, place it on Mordecai, and parade him in the streets as a hero. Haman was very upset, but he attended the second banquet, where Esther reveals her request that she and her people be saved from death. Then she also reveals that she is of Jewish heritage. And the king ordered Haman hung on the gallows, the very gallows that he had created to kill Mordecai. Mordecai was promoted to Haman's high position, and Jews were granted protection through the land. The people celebrated God's tremendous deliverance in the joyous festival of Purim, the origin of the Feast of Lots. This is an annual festival that commemorates God's salvation of the Jewish people, and it's similar to the deliverance from slavery in Egypt. So there's a lot of themes in the book of Esther. And I'm using something that I've learned from that guy sitting over there. The what, so what, and now what. So the hand of God is at work in the lives of his people. That's the what. He used the circumstances in Esther's life as he uses the decisions and actions of all humans to eventually work out divine plans and purposes. That's the so what. We can trust in the Lord's sovereign care over every aspect of our lives. That's the now what. There's another way to look at it. Those themes in the Esther, we see God's interaction with man's will. That's the what. His hatred of racial prejudice, his power to give wisdom and help in times of danger. That's the so what. God's deliverance. The Lord raised up Esther as he raised up Moses, Joshua, Joseph, and many others to deliver his people from destruction. Through Jesus Christ, we are delivered from death and hell. God is able to save his children. That's the now what. So some scholars take issue with the book of Esther, as God's name is never mentioned. One of these scholars was Martin Luther. Perhaps because of this, Esther is told as a secular story to illustrate God's care over even secularized Jews. Accuracy with Esther in Esther's story is also questioned. However, archaeologists have learned more about ancient Persian history. The details of Esther have proven remarkably reliable. Esther's story invites us to cling to hope, however small, and to have confidence that whatever evil might currently reign, the story of God is never finished. You are not forgotten. Thank you.
I'm trusting in what you say. Today is the day.